Hello folks, today we're going to be taking apart an iPhone 6. As you can see, it actually took a little bit of a fall in a gravel parking lot, and a rock hit just right on the edge of our hearing or the earpiece side of the phone. You can see it actually started a crack right on that weak point and slowly has spread through. Screen still works pretty well. It's actually kind of surprising. It has all its functionality and stuff, which is pretty neat, but it is getting rather sharp, and you can see all these smaller cracks are beginning to connect, and there's chips and chunks coming out of there, and it'll actually cut your fingers. So part of being a horrible aesthetic feature of having a cracked screen, we're going to replace this. Now a typical place is going to charge probably $100, $150 to get a screen switched on it. We were able to find a replacement screen that has majority of the parts already attached to it. Of course, if you're feeling a little bit more daring, you can get just the actual touch screen portion, and all of the hardware, the actual screen portion, the thumb, the camera, video side, all the connections would be stripped off of it, and you'd actually have to try and salvage those from the existing one. Um, we paid about $24 for this new screen, and we're going to install it ourselves. Keep in mind, a lot of times when you're looking at these, there's going to have lots of options. This one does not come with the thumb ID button, so just another feature to be aware of when you're looking on those different online sites, the Amazons, the eBays, wherever you're getting your stuff from. The supplier will say, hey, this doesn't have the Touch ID. If that's something you really need, you'd have to salvage it from your existing one, or buy one that does have it. So to begin with, there will be a tool set that's usually sent with it, kind of a handful of different types of screwdrivers. As you can see, still getting updates and stuff on this, but that's a good point at which here, we're actually going to want to shut down your iPhone 6. Make sure you turn the power off before you start any work on the inside of it. But a handful of tools that come with it. We got suction cups, grabby things, all kinds of cool stuff here. So hopefully we'll be able to get into this thing. Couple of things that wouldn't have come with the kit but are a good idea. A little bit of packing tape. So as you take this screen off, it's going to lose a lot of its structural integrity, and you're going to want that packing tape to keep all the pieces together. It also protects your fingers while you're working on it. I will be wearing a couple of nitrile gloves. Not only does it help protect your fingers, but it'll keep any oils or fingerprints off of the inside of the components, which is going to be incredibly frustrating if you get to the end and you see that there's a print on the inside of your screen or something weird like that. Helps just keep it clean. You don't have to be as careful with what you're touching. Lastly, we're on a nice, hard, clean surface here, stable. We're away from anything that's vibrating. You're going to be dealing with very small components. So you'll want to keep that in mind. If you ever want to have a chance at finding these things, don't be working over carpet. You move once, it falls, it's gone into it. Those types of things. Also, as you're taking these apart, you may want to have a little dish to put stuff in. So what this is here is, this is just the top of the case that the screen came in. I'm going to flip that over, so when I start taking screws out, I'll just drop them right into that, and then keeps them contained in that dish. If you have one with, like, say, a magnetic bottom, even better. So let's get started here. We're going to take a little bit of tape off of our packing tape here. Maybe we can get this thing started. Just try and get this over most of it. I suppose we could do 2 pieces, but gently push that down on there. A little bit of overhang. It looks like one's going to be good enough for now. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put on these gloves here. We'll get ready. First part you're going to want to do is going to start at the charging port end. There's a couple of screws at the bottom there that we will undo. I believe they are a hex head or a Torx. I'll take this guy, flip it over. As you can kind of see, starting on this end, got our second piece of tape here. There, and then now that'll keep all extra shards and stuff out of there. I'll get this other charging port screw. So a lot of these parts of where to start, I'm trying to infer after studying this replacement screen we got. I'll pull that up here to kind of show how I think this thing's going to come apart. As you can see on this end, we've got, these are the two charging port screws. The home button sitting right over the top of it. The screws come through the outside case, hold that in. On the other end of your screen, you'll see you've got kind of some tab looking features here that would lock in. So what I'm expecting this to do is you slide this end in, click this down, it'd be the same way pulling it out. So always be thinking of those types of deals when you're working on these little projects here. They send you a nice suction cuppy guy. I'm going to start this one at the top end here. Let's see if we can get this to pop out. We'll see how good my packing tape idea is if I can't get a grip on that, but it looks like we're failing in that aspect. But yeah, can't get a grip on that. So in the great idea that I had with the packing tape to protect you guys, look like maybe we're going to fail, but we'll try this other one here. So all in all, a good idea, but maybe what we'll do is we'll pull this packing tape back a little bit, try and keep the majority of the screen section that has the most damage up here by the earpiece covered. We'll work down at the bottom section here if we can. This little suction one is the one that was actually sent with the screen type, so hopefully that works, because that's what most of you guys are going to have at home here. Let's see if we can get this to separate. You can see we're starting to get a little bit of a gap built in there. I don't know if we're going to have enough with the suction cup, so we're going to switch to one of these other little tools they sent along. Got a handful of weird little plasticky wedge type tools. See if we can get this in on an edge. These suction cup guys are just about worthless, so I don't know if that also might be the fact that because the screen is cracked on the bottom, it's actually letting air through a section of it there. I'm trying to hold the bottom of the screen right around the charging port. Now I've got just enough of a point to enter my little tool. I'm going to try and split the screen with that. So once you get that in there, you're going to want to just rock the tool slightly each direction. Get this thing started. All right, now that it's coming, we should be able to pull it out. So as I was kind of stating, once you get it up, we're just going to want to try and wiggle the screen back towards the front to get those two little ear tabs to slide out. And you're always going to want to be careful at this stage of taking apart anything, because usually there's going to be wires that are on the back of this connecting to other components. So you're going to kind of have a short leash. Let's see if we can get this to separate real nicely. All right, so just as we suspected. Got all kinds of stuff going on inside here. Get a look at it before we go too much further. Looks like we've got a couple of Phillips heads in the top that are trapping this end of, looks like, our camera and our screen inputs. Probably want to take those off next here. It looks like we're largely separated. I don't see any other parts playing with it. So we're going to switch to our Phillips. Starting in the one corner, I'm just going to start pulling. Looks like there's this larger metal plate up there. So another tool to keep in mind, as you can see, a very small part, a magnetic tip screwdriver. It's going to be a very friendly tool in a lot of these applications. Allows you to hold those smaller pieces in there. So we'll continue working away at this top metal piece here. Looks like a cover. Going to make our electrical connections. As you can see, it looks like we've got maybe 5 of these pieces to pull. And some of them, and a lot of times when I'm taking apart different things like this, I'll find out that certain pieces are you didn't have to take apart. So now we've come across a longer screw here. Keep in mind when you're taking things apart where the holes they came from were. Obviously, you don't want to be taking this long screw and trying to put it into that smaller one. So you'll want to try and just set that guy aside. If you've got a decent mental picture of what you're working on, keep that in mind. If not, maybe draw yourself up a little picture, and you can label, the basic 5 holes that are there, and say long screw, short screw, long screw, short screw type of a deal. Especially if you were going to go replace a component a little bit lower in this phone. If this was just the first step of 10, you definitely want to get that little diagram going, because you may not complete it all in one sitting. All right, so we have this guy hopefully loosened up. Again, we're going to want to try and just gently work away at these, kind of probing delicately to see what's going on. We can get that to flip open just like that. So now here are the other connections and components, our spare screen. You can see this is basically all of these items that are started down there. So kind of got a larger forceps or tweezers type tool. We're just going to gently see if we can work these up, as they're just kind of like a push-in type connection. All right, one more, and I think we're there. Also keep in mind, a lot of these components are, they're relatively small. They're not designed to handle much force. It's hard to move something. You're probably doing it wrong, so just kind of keep that, maybe reapproach from a different direction. Look at how those things work. But now we have our old screen off. Just for giggles, before I start here, I do like the Touch ID button feature. And I'm going to try and pull this apart quickly here. So now, when I'm taking side tangents or adventures like this, I'm not going to touch my working one, because that's the backup in case we can't get this part out without maybe damaging it or working on things. But judging by how these connections are all pretty universal, I'm guessing this part will pop right out once we get into it here. So I'm just going to take our portion of this off and just see what we've got in there. Again, so now collecting more screws of different sizes to add to the pile. Again, just be careful how you're sorting these. If you have a smaller dish you're placing stuff in, be aware of which ones go where. We're going to gently pull that guy off. I'm not 100% sure if that has any importance in the grand scheme of things, but kind of look at this a little bit here. Looks like we've got another one of those type of snap connection in there. So we've gently removed that. Just going to apply a little bit of pressure from the front side here. The rest of our packing tape off. And I believe we'll have it. So we've got the button loose. Looks like we've got just a couple of little kind of a rubber held in piece here. Just giving me a little bit of resistance. There might have been a little bit of glue at the bottom of that. But we have our Touch ID button now. So see, now that was relatively easy. I think we're going to try and swap that quick. So we have our original working one here. We'll set that down. And just like that, you can drop a piece and have it disappear forever. Fortunately for us, we've actually got it almost 16 inches away. How far that little screw rolled on that. So again, keep in mind the surface that you're working on. Much easier to pick those things out on a nice, clean, hard tabletop. For the sake of continuity, I'm going to try and keep some of these pieces together. They should be interchangeable, but it's just, again, the idea of, if they're already put together once, they'll probably put together a little bit better than if I'm interchanging between phones. I'll gently push from the front side, try and get the rest of this button up. We have to take off our protective cover. Get in there. Gently pushing from the back. Get our forceps. All right, so our non-Touch ID button. Grab the new one, or the old one from the original phone. Place that guy in there. Get it as lined as best we can. Seems like the manufacturer has done pretty well on these iPhones. Pieces seem to fit exactly how you'd expect them. Give it a gentle push. Make sure, again, you're lining up all of your pieces. You got those two little post and hole type guides right here. So I want to make sure that you're getting your chip right on top of that. We'll make our connection with the wiring here. Get a nice, easy push together. It's looking good. We're going to gently flip it over. Check our orientation and our alignment on the front. That looks pretty good. And then gently start reassembling. And we're officially on the home stretch now. Nothing else is coming apart. All going back together. So this is going to be where having that magnetic tip screwdriver is probably worth your time dealing with these small little parts, especially if you tend to have a little bit of a shake in your hands. These pieces will come out a little bit, but once you get it aligned, you're just going to want to gently set it in the top. Give her a few turns. If it tends to fight you or tip over, you may need to just start over. You don't want to be cross-threading. These kind of parts generally won't hold together, or they'll fall apart on you later. So it's worth just getting it done right the first time instead of trying to force it. A little bit of patience. If you're struggling with stuff, never devalue the ability to just walk away from a project for 5 or 10 minutes and just allow you to clear your head on it. But so now we've got our touch button switched out. We're really hoping that just works and we're not doing something else with it. We've got our base phone here again. Now, if you ever forget how it was orientated, like I just did for a little bit there, look for your charging port. The button's going to be right over the top of that. So then now we've got our piece oriented, and we're going to want to start making our connections for the camera and earpiece side. And again, seeing how these are nice and stacked on top of each other in a layered format. We're going to start at the bottom and just slowly work our way up. Gently feeling it out. These parts tend to align or guide themselves. So you just want to make sure you're getting a good overhead alignment, and you'll actually feel it's kind of a two-stage click. It will the piece will kind of fall in on top, and then it'll make a first click, and then you can actually apply pressure and it'll make that second one. If you're not feeling that first little click in there, just keep checking how the alignment sits. You can see this last one. We're actually starting to run out of band here. You kind of have to balance the screen and get the new one in there. There. Got it nice and connected. We'll just gently go over the top of it again with our fingers, making sure we're getting a good connection. Kind of a trickier part now. I'm going to employ another little prop to gently hold my screen up. It's tending to want to rock away from me. So we've got our cover plate here. We'll get that started. And as you can see on this cover plate, I actually pulled out one screw that I did not need to up in that upper corner, as it was nothing a part of this, but just either way is a little bit extra work, but nothing too big. So now that we got this gently here, I'm actually going to start with my larger screw in an attempt that will be a little bit easier than one of those smaller ones. This will probably be the most difficult part of this project in my mind, is trying to balance the screen and keep all these components together. But we're making some pretty decent headway. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you have a friend that could be nearby, in this case, they could throw a hand on there. But I'm gonna get my friend here to reorientate the screw. Again, just kind of getting them started. The other reason I use that longer screw first, it'll be a little bit easier to start a little bit longer of a screw. However, it'll also have a tendency to hold more than these shorter screws. So you don't have to worry about it maybe pulling out or damaging the threads if you were to let go of the screen and kind of tip the whole thing over. Again, I really want to stress this is when you'd want to get that magnetic tip screw. If you do not have a magnetic tip screw, kind of a couple ways you can cheat in the short term. You can try just a little bit of masking tape on the end of your screw, or on the top of it, and then you push the actual Phillips head through it, and it kind of creates a little bit of a pressure fitting. However, you kind of have to redo that for each screw. Can be a little bit of a time-consuming deal, but if you are, I'd be inanely frustrated if I was trying to get these screws and they kept falling off right as you're tipping the screw over, or the screwdriver over. All right, so now we've got our last one in there. I'm just going to briefly go over the top of these again, check their torque. Don't need to be cranking away on these. This is all going to be relatively contained, but you just want to make sure you didn't under tighten anything. So we should be really getting close now. We're going to gently get this tipped over. We're going to be working to get those two little plastic ear tabs in. Gotta get that nice tight fit in the upper corner. Check our alignment. We're getting closer. Can be a little bit finicky, but it will start to snap into place as you move down starting from the top portion here back up. Just giving a general look over on the outside edges to make sure we're getting a nice tight fit. If there's anything weird that's going on there, anything that's kind of a little bit out of place, or maybe showing that there's some issues on the inside as far as alignment, I think we're getting pretty close. So we're going to move to our charging port, which will hopefully hold all of this together. Once we get our charging port screws connected, we'll fire this puppy up and see if we get to take it apart again. And give yourself a little bit of confidence. I probably should have started with this, but just in a general sense, this phone was well broken when we started. The worst case scenario, we're out the 15 or 20 minutes that I spent here playing around plus the screen. Well, in that event, I could probably bring the existing screen into a place to have them use it as a part, get a little bit of a discount on my work as well. So, like I say, worst case scenario, you maybe wasted a little bit of your time, but could have saved over $100 for a process that's really not that hard. And we added a pretty significant step trying to save that thumbprint ID feature, which we could have just pushed the thing back together. So working on this last charging port screw here. It's actually giving me a little bit of a trouble with getting started, but it seems like it's starting now. You'll just want to vary your pressure against it, either going tighter or looser, because the way that screw and eye configuration works, maybe there's a little bit of misalignment to begin with, but we'll just keep tightening her up here. We're getting really close. All right, time for the wait for our iPhone to take 8 minutes to start. Get the dial up going in the background. No. It does make you wonder what it's doing while it's starting like these sometimes. So. But with this, as these screens are relatively fragile, as we saw in that last part there, well, it looks like we got it back on. I'd strongly recommend anybody getting yourself a nice screen protector, maybe a harder plastic sheet to help distribute weight on that. But we'll actually try out the old thumbprint scanner here and see if that works. Oh, you can't? Okay. Yeah, we'll keep this part to ourselves. But all right, so then now we're going to double check the camera, make sure that works. Oh, that's never a good sign. Okay, all right. I was going to say a black picture. No, all right, so it looks like our camera's working. The one thing, maybe another feature that might not have been working, we'll try the old flashlight. Flashlight's working. We can obviously try a call later to make sure the earpiece is working, but it does seem just in general that all of the features are working. We'll try out the thumbprint. Oh. Looks like it's working. So just a great little show on there. Again, really don't be too intimidated by these electronic things. I know I can be, because I don't understand all the things that make them work. So I just automatically trump it up to witchcraft. But it's a very easy process. Somebody had to put this together. That means you can take it apart. A little bit of patience looking at these things. So tune in for another video. Please check out our other videos where we go through a lot of those how-to things, saving money. It's all about the lifestyle of being able to do things yourself, and just never be selling yourself short. But anyway, so that'll be good, and we'll take any questions you guys have on this process, and we'll go from there. Thanks for joining us.